Good morning, Liz. It's almost afternoon now. How are you doing today?
Oh, great. Thank you.
We've been going at it for quite a while here. So we're gonna bring you a probe on savants. So I was gonna link it with the light language stuff, but I think it deserves its own video. So the first person we have up here, his name is Kim Peek, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, the movie The Rain Man was actually based after his life. Um, and so he I believe he had a really great ability to do mathematics very easily. Can we tune into Kim? I don't know if he's still alive.
Yeah, I can tune into him. Let's just make sure. I do have someone standing here. And what's his name again? Kim,
Kim Peek, Peek.
still alive. Okay, no, I think he's passed. And
Okay.
that would make sense because I had someone standing here in hologram form, and I
Mhm.
just wanted to make sure that this was the correct spirit that I needed to speak with, and it is.
All right. So Kim, when he was in this lifetime, apparently he had memorized over 12,000 books, and he was an expert in 15 subject areas. So it was a little bit different than the movie portrayed him. Um, can we ask him if he liked his portrayal in the movie The Rain Man?
He loved it. He
Yeah.
loved
And he got to see the movie, maybe?
many times.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool. All right. So can we ask him what was going on there that he had such incredible ability? Was it something like a physical thing that was happening inside his brain, or was it like maybe a more spiritual thing that was happening to give him that power?
So, is this a form? It was a form of autism I'm getting. And what it was certain parts of the brain were not processing. They were very, very slow speed, but then other parts of the brain were highly activated. So
Interesting.
instead of having this balance of, all these different areas within the brain and all these different functions, he had parts that were completely highly charged, highly activated.
Right. And so that kind of makes me think like, someone that may also have a quote unquote disability, like someone that's blind, generally their hearing is going to be incredible. So the
Mm-hmm.
brain takes that energy and then focuses it on the ability that you do have, and it makes it like a superpower. So that's kind of the same thing that's going on here.
It is, but there was no outward like disabilities, like as far as like deafness or blindness or anything like that. It was just parts of his brain were not functioning. So the part that where he needed to read emotions and judge the atmosphere and things like that, those were slow processing speeds. Actually barely moving at times. But the other areas where it came to like mathematical equations, memorization, he's telling me language, memorizing language. And he would have been great at coding and computers and things like that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Can I ask about the life, like his life path there? Did he choose that life path in order to accelerate you viewed in other probes that sometimes people will have um difficult lives, and then that kind of accelerates their process in the ascension process. I guess they have to live less incarnations. Is that something he chose to that end, where he chose this life that may have been a little bit more difficult in some ways?
He definitely designed this, but his intention behind it was to highlight, you know, just because on the face of it, somebody looks as if they have a perceived disability,
Hmm.
they should see it as an opportunity to excel in other areas. So it
Right.
was about trying to be, I mean, I shouldn't say trying to be normal. I don't really understand what he wants me to say, but trying to be normal is, hang on 2 seconds. Okay, sorry about the dog barking.
No problem.
So trying to be like normal, he's saying, it was trying to see him as that he is a human being. He says, because oftentimes people with disabilities are viewed as less than.
Right.
And he says this was about showing them that not only am I equal, but in a lot of areas I'm even smarter. When anybody came across this man, they were blown away
Oh
by.
yeah. And there was also a motion picture made out of him, so it like actually went, worldwide. So he definitely accomplished his mission here on the Earth plane, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. He that was his mission, that was his intention.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks, Kim. We're gonna move on to the next contestant. Next person we have up is Leslie Lemke. And his extraordinary ability was he was able to play any type of music just by listening to it once. And apparently, here he was suffering from cerebral palsy at a young age, and he was adopted. And then, he developed this incredible ability to basically play, I think, across different instruments also. So can you bring in Leslie? I'm not sure if he's still with us.
Yeah, let me see. I don't feel that he is. I
Hmm.
don't feel. I have another hologram form standing here.
Okay.
So, wow, what an amazing ability.
Yeah. So what I find this amazing too. Like I'm a musician myself, and I've always learned by ear, even today. Like I did take, you know, classes later on, but that's how I started learning. So I like the idea of, sometimes I'll listen to things and I'll just pick up my instrument and start playing, noodling along to it, if you will. But someone like this is like, it's like completely perfect. Like he could listen to a sonata or something like that and just like play it like exactly, like, like with accuracy. What's going on there? Can we ask Leslie on a physical level to allow him to do that? Is it similar to Kim?
He's actually alive.
Oh, it is.
This is like one of the weirdest things I've ever probed. His consciousness is not there.
Hmm.
And I'm saying, where is your consciousness? And he's one of those rare people that were born with, you know, very little consciousness. It like gets out of the way, right? So, what about this whole thing? So he could listen to it something once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then just go for it. Like it's like someone taking a photograph, but like musically, and then reproducing it.
But that's because his consciousness being out of the way allowed for all knowing.
Wow. And so
Hmm.
this manifested in the way of music. Why? Like I'm assuming that like that could have been applied to anything. Yeah.
This manifested in the way of music. Yes, because that's how he connected all those emotions and things on an emotional level. It just came very natural, very easy to him. He didn't even have to think about what the notes were. He didn't have to think about, reading music, or he is just, he felt his way through. And that's what I'm like, I've never really probed someone like this before. That's
Wow.
because his consciousness is floating, which would explain why he's in was in hologram form, because I'm like trying to connect with him on a mind probe level, and I'm like, I can't really locate the consciousness because that's what I'm tapping into, right? I'm tapping into consciousness.
That's funny.
Uh, and I couldn't find that. So now that makes sense. So this guy, yeah, he just his consciousness is not attached to him.
Okay. So now I think some people would, and I think some people that do study, and I've watched a good documentary, and I can't remember what the name of it is, that follows a savant that's really gifted musically, similar to Leslie, where he can just pick up and play anything. And the idea from science is, or at least from that perspective, is that they're really good at reproducing things with flawless like accuracy, right? And almost like taking a picture musically, like I said. But sometimes they don't score high on the emotional side of the piece, or at least be able to identify what emotion the original composer was trying to convey. But I feel like from what you got from him, he was all emotion. Like that's what he was really communicating was emotion. Is that correct?
Yes, so he would gather the information and sort of transmute it inside of the body somewhere. And emotionally, he could read whatever it was, and he was pouring out the emotion. So, I
So
mean, it's quite amazing what he can do.
so he was tuning into the emotional energy from the original composer. Is that correct?
Yes, he could get because those emotions from the original composer, they're still a thought form energy. They're still an idea. So because his consciousness was not standing in the way, he could locate it, subconsciously locate it, and transmute it and translate it.
Interesting. All right, Leslie, thank you for being with us. We're going to move on to the next contestant, Mr. Stephen Wiltshire. So can we grab Stephen? I'm not sure if he's still with us or not.
Okay, what was he known for?
So he was an artist. You can see him. It's hard to see maybe
Hmm.
there, but he's replicating like an entire cityscape from his memory.
Oh my
I
God.
believe I saw a video of him like years ago on a documentary of him reproducing these skylines. There is quite spectacular, all from memory and done with a pen on a piece of like on a huge canvas. So yeah, it says here, and maybe this is what I saw in the video. He got wider recognition in 2005 when he was taken for a short helicopter ride over Tokyo, and then he drew a perfect landscape of the city with his photographic memory. So he could get
Oh.
down to the details of the number of floors and windows of each building. So I have to imagine this is similar somewhat to Leslie in a way, right? Where it's like this accuracy is like where his consciousness is getting out of the way and he's got that all-knowing capability. Is that correct?
No.
No, okay.
Okay. So it's not that his consciousness is out of the way. His consciousness for this guy is intact and he's still alive.
Mm,
But again, it's about processing and activation. Certain parts of his brain are highly like supercharged um machines, like they have. See, if we all had the ability to unlock our brains, which we do, actually we do have the ability to unlock our brains, but that's a whole nother video.
mm,
um but for these guys, like for him and the first guy, they both had certain parts of their brains that were completely unlocked and highly activated,
mm,
whereas other parts of their brains where like communication is difficult, um again, facial emotions, reading people, empathy is difficult. But certainly this part of their brain, or his brain, again, highly activated. And we all have this ability if we are allowed to unlock the power of the brain.
Okay, so there's certain governors that are in place, like even in for psychic abilities, right? I think you've got that before, that there's like a governor, if you will, or a safety mechanism in place so that we don't all have the extraordinary abilities because it would affect, our soul journey here and the lessons that we learn. Obviously, if we were all knowing, that would kind of mess things up. But you know,
Mhm.
is there a way that we can turn up the volume a little bit on certain areas without sacrificing either our soul mission, and also obviously these individuals, they are on the spectrum, and so that they have maybe a lack of those abilities to differentiate between social cues and stuff like that, so there's like a balance of power there. So is there a way for us to kind of enhance our own abilities without giving up all of our social cues, or you know what I'm trying to say? Does that make sense?
I mean, if we sort of shut down parts of our brain and unlocked other parts,
Well, I don't want to do that. I don't like in an
right?
extreme
I
in
don't
an
want to do
extreme
that.
way. Like these guys are doing this in an extreme way, right? Where they're I don't want to say unbalanced, but like, they're giving up a certain type of energy for another energy, let's say. And so for us, is there a way to do it in not such an extreme way where we could, unlock some more abilities without giving up too much on the other end? Or is it an all or nothing kind of scenario?
Well, for these guys, their lifetimes were designed in this way,
Right.
right? Um, but can we do? Yes, we can unlock the power of the brain. We can.
So there's a just coming to my head right now. There's a man called Jim Quick, and he's someone that teaches people, like he gives like seminars and workshops about how to increase your memory, to almost have like a photographic memory, not to this extreme, but to increase your abilities. So someone like that, it's possible to like train yourself to become, photographic in your memory.
It is possible. If not everybody can do it,
Mm,
but you can certainly increase your memory. Yes, but that's also unlocking the power of your brain.
mm. Okay. So we're not just like, born with it and that's it kind of deal.
Are we
It can be
born
taught.
with it? I mean, on the level that these guys are,
No. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
On the level that these guys, no, 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 no. But you can certainly activate more of your brain, which is what everybody should be trying to do, right?
Right. And that's,
Um,
go ahead. Sorry.
the reason I say that is because as we have looked out in the future, we see consciousness shrinking, brain power shrinking. And that's because we are no longer reading, we're no longer expanding our brains. We're just absorbing information as fast as possible in the path of least resistance, right? It's easier to hear something and to watch something than it is to physically, read the words, decipher the words, translate them, absorb them into the brain, and then, have a narrative in your head. Because oftentimes, I don't know about you, Mr. Photon, but certainly when I read, I can hear, it being read in my head, right? And so that is actually very, very powerful. We're going, the pendulum is now swinging the other way, and we're dumbing our brains down, and
Yes.
therefore the critical thinking, the processing issue, the consciousness is shrinking, and it's going to be even harder and harder to activate the brain. In fact, what will excuse me, end up happening is that we will rely upon people to supply us with information instead of really researching it through curiosity. um, we'll just rely to be fed.
Yeah, and that's going to be happening on an extreme level. I mean, we already have that in our culture already. over the last, and even in the past, right? The education of I don't know if you've ever heard of the trivium, but it was a higher class education that was given to obviously not everybody attended university and colleges in the past, right? Until the 50s and 60s when it became more accessible. But before that, the rich people, if you will, of the times, they had access to this higher class of education, which really taught critical thinking. And because the lower classes did not have access to that, they were easily manipulated, let's say, by the powers that be. So unfortunately, this can also be used as a tool to, subjugate people if they cannot think for themselves and are influenced by things like the mass media and different things. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
Absolutely. So this is about unlocking the power of the brain. We all should be trying to unlock the power of the brain.
right. And I guess at the youngest age is important too. So all you parents out there, be aware of how your children are being influenced by a lack of exposure to things like reading and more exposure to social media and artificial intelligence in the future. Really, people are going to be growing up with that technology, and it's going to limit our ability to think for ourselves for sure. So keep that in mind if you are a parent or looking to be a parent to be out there.
Yeah, you know me. Everybody knows my stance on this by
Mhm.
now, which is no video games, no smartphones, no iPads, no tablets. I don't allow any of that stuff in my house. Um, yes, I am the meanest mommy in the whole wide world, and I don't care. But anyway, yeah, you can unlock the power of the brain. So let's ask this question. Does QHHT and BQH unlock the power of the brain? Yes. Is it a permanent unlocking? Sometimes it can be a permanent unlocking. CTT, very powerful at unlocking the brain. The issue is you need to do a lot of sessions. None of this stuff is a one hit wonder.
Mm.
You would have to do many, 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 many sessions in order to unlock the power of the brain. But it
Right.
does expand your consciousness. Could we ever unlock it to the point where we could be like these guys? Yes, we can. But would we have to shut down other parts of the brain in order to achieve that status? No, no. So because we have the processing, I'm not saying everybody out there, but say, normal, what is normal anyway? But
Mm.
people that have regular processing, brain processing, um, and they're activated, all areas of the brain, equal distribution, they can activate these areas of the brain to make them more powerful. Is
Right.
there a benefit to having a photographic memory? Yes, there is.
Oh, sure. I mean, you can take in more information and actually, have a better capacity to understand that information as well,
Ah,
right?
but do we? Is it simply memorization, or do we have the ability to process that information? So, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's
Not
good point.
necessarily. These guys are just verbatim, right?
Yeah.
So, they're absorbing it, they're memorizing it. This guy here is putting, what he saw down. But does
Right.
that mean he can critically think about what is actually going on in the artwork that he is drawing? Can he Does he understand it? Not necessarily. So he's basically taking it and recreating it, line by line.
Mm.
But does it mean that he can critically think about the information? Does it mean that he can create a story of what is going on? And that's a no.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, well, I'd like to thank everybody that joined us today. I think we're going to wrap it up so we don't make it too long, but it was a fascinating probe.
Yeah, really. I know it surprised me as well. And yeah, this was great. Now we understand this guy right here, this Stephen Will, I'm sorry, this Leslie. guy. Oh my goodness. Like that, I've never probed somebody like that with their consciousness like detached from the body.
Mm,
Unless they were on substances. People
right.
that abuse substances, their
Uh,
consciousness can detach. But that brings about all sorts of issues because you can encounter darkness when your consciousness is detached. This guy, no, his consciousness is detached, but it is surrounded in light. So he
ah,
doesn't have those issues.
right. Well, that was my question. You read my mind again. So
Oh,
beautiful.
I must be psychic. All right. Well, thanks for putting this together. Again, if you want to get with Mr. Photon, he does crypto consults, digital freedom tactics at protonmail.com. And also, he has a tip jar down below in the comments, and you can buy him a coffee. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz.